Yeah, so anyway, we were talking before. Now, we had a slight technical issue, usually actually an error, user error by me. So we're continuing the start of a show we mistakenly put on my personal page. Now it is back on the College Success for Less business page for Lockwood College Consulting. I'm Andy Lockwood. Pearl.
I'm Pearl.
Pearl had nothing to do with this. It was 100% me. And we are talking about the FAQs that we get, frequently asked questions that we get that not only during the past week, but anything that you may have in terms of questions right now. So we're talking about college financial aid. We're talking about the FAFSA, which Pearl has been doing literally night and day, the CSS profile for some schools, and we were almost done, but I think we'll just summarize the discussion that we had because we had a client, Debbie, who had asked us about a particular school that her daughter is really keen on going to, Tufts University in right outside of Boston, my hometown. And her question was, I plugged in my numbers, and it looks like, according to Tufts net price calculator, that they should give us, a substantial amount of money. Can I rely on that? So what I pointed out was, number one, they are meant as general guidelines. It's mandated by the Federal Department of Education, which regulates all the colleges, that that each college post a net price calculator on there, but they don't mandate exactly what questions have to be asked by each college. So different results get spewed out. And so that's one of the big flaws. The other big flaw is that, which we have yet to talk about, is that the net price calculators don't tell you how to improve your eligibility, which is something that we specialize in for our clients, and we'll be able to talk about that a little bit. So you being Pearl, the lovely Pearl, started talking about how you have seen, and I agree with you, over the years, this has been about 3 years since the Department of Education first started requiring this in order to rightfully, I think in a good way, to help parents get an idea about what college is going to cost them. However, like many regulatory types of actions, there was still a lot of devil in the details. So you pointed out that you've seen a lot of discrepancies.
Yes.
And I have also, in terms of what people plug in initially before they apply to college and the actual results that they end up getting.
That's right.
And to be fair, and I don't think you got to this point yet, part of that issue is that these calculators are sort of garbage in, garbage out. Exactly. Meaning that who knows what you put in. Now, again, some calculators ask for more information than others, some don't. The point is, I think, is to use them as a guideline. But don't think that these numbers are written in stone. And if you want a better estimate on what the colleges should give you, that's of course something we do with our clients. But you need to go to different sources. I guess that's really the main answer.
That's right. And also, just keep in mind, a financial aid award is made up of many moving parts. Some are based on your financial need. Some are based on the amount of generosity a particular school has in terms of giving you free or grant money, merit aid. There's also work study. There are loans. There are many ways a school can make up its award, and that does not necessarily bear greater information or clarity on what you will ultimately come out of pocket for that school at this juncture.
All right. John McCabe is telling me that he can't hear us. If you guys, but who else do I see here? I see, he lied. I had my earphones plugged in when you were talking because I didn't want to listen to you. You're starting off really nasty. Yeah, he's
angry.
He seems like this very convivial, congenial guy.
Yeah.
But when you get to know him, he's nasty. Yeah, I think he's got anger issues. He's a bitter man. He's from Canada, also. I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That explains a lot.
Yeah. Or it could be the 25 stupid comments I've given him each week that he's been on his show.
No.
Okay. So, so the net price calculator is a tool, but it is not the burning bush. It is not the gospel.
Use loosely.
So go into the calendar there, where I had some more questions. We got these questions during the week. If you're just joining us and your name is not John McCabe, please like, Please comment. Please, even if your name is John, fine. Please like, comment, and share. Let us know that you're out there. Let us know your specific questions that you may have for us, because we got a whole lot of questions over the last week. I spoke at at a local high school, Herrick's High School. Had about 40 or 50 people in the audience. They fired away a whole bunch of questions, including really good ones. One of the ones that and I actually spoke to someone today who made an appointment with us after that meeting. It was a gentleman. I'm not going to say his name, Bob. And just kidding. It's not really his name. And he came up to me and he said, "Hey, you know what? I saw you speak here last year." Because this high school made the mistake of having me back actually 3 years in a row, a big lapse of judgment. And he said, so I'm a senior in high school now, and we are going to fill out the forms. I talked to my accountant, and he told me, remember this? And he told me that I shouldn't bother filling the forms out because nobody who makes $50,000 or more receives any type of aid. And so what I told Bob was that, you know what, you're going to like my talk, because one of the things I spoke about at the event was, first of all, most aid goes to families who make six-figure incomes, meaning the top 25%, top quartile of earners, and the average discount at a college is 48.6%. So I spoke to him afterward, and he said, "Well, how come my accountant doesn't know this stuff?" And I said, "He's stupid." No, I didn't say that. I said the main reason is that accountants have enough of a problem keeping up with every tax change. The tax regulations are voluminous. The financial aid regulations also are pretty lengthy. There's 1,100 pages of regulations behind the FAFSA, which is the easier financial aid form that colleges use, but the tax code is probably a multiple of that. So accountants frequently just kind of get stuck in their own field, and frankly, I think that's fine, because you really need to be a specialist. I happen to know a lot of accountants. I actually just started getting approved. I just got approved to teach continuing education to accountants. So I've been speaking to a lot of accountants. Yeah, it was rigorous. Anyway. If you're an accountant out there and you want 2 credits, give us a call. But anyway, just understanding how much they have to keep up with is a reason enough to understand why they should not be expected to understand college financial aid. My problem, though, with that is that I would not, and I think very rarely will you do this, but you're in a better position than I am. I would never opine to a client, "Well, I think you're not deducting enough." What I would say is, you probably could get your expenses up, talk to your accountant, and see what he can do. There's a difference. So it kind of annoys me when accountants give advice that can actually sabotage families from getting all the money that they deserve. Other types of advice is you should save all this, try to open up accounts for your kids and save money in their names, because if you have like a 529, you'll be able to deduct it, and so on and so forth. Well, you know what? That is great advice for some people, but it's not great advice for many people, because the question with the 529 college savings plan is not whether or not it counts against you, it's how much it counts against you. And that is also something that can sabotage you. So anyway. And
that is also not something that can be answered without the context of the entire picture.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because in college financial aid, just like life,
yes, there
are many gray areas. There's a lot of ambiguity. So another example of that is, and this is this circles back to that comment by this accountant, is that there's no magic number, there's no ceiling that once you go over it you don't qualify for anything, and you can look high and low on the internet and every college's website and try to find out what that number is, and it doesn't exist. It's like the horizon. It's like trying to touch the horizon. It's impossible.
I'll even add this. Let's say you have an astronomically high adjusted gross income. Okay, and you had, I don't care what your assets are, let's say they're nothing. And so maybe that in and of itself, and so you say, I'm not applying for I'm not going to submit those forms. What if a handful of the schools that are on your students list require those forms for merit consideration, and you don't bother to submit it. And let's just say you have that wonderful income. If you could pay, I don't care who you are, if you could pay less than what the sticker price is, for whatever reason, why wouldn't you? But if this is the triggering event, filing these forms that cause that consideration, who wouldn't?
Right. Well, if you took your accountant's advice, you would be the one not doing that. so anyway, that's the point. And we hear this also all sorts of bad advice from guidance counselors in high schools. Many, not all. I don't think I told this story yet this week. I can't remember who I told this to, who I didn't. Not only do guidance counselors and accountants and financial advisor type guys sometimes give advice that can, like I said, sabotage your eligibility for aid, but sometimes it gets even worse. So the worst story I've heard ever, and we've been in this field, more than 10 years, the worst story ever I heard last Friday, one week ago today. I told you this. We have a client who came in. She was really, really upset. And generally, I don't make our clients upset. Not always, but I try not to. It's not the best business model to make your clients cry. And I said, well, what's the matter? Because even I picked up on it. And she said, you're not going to believe what happened. I said, what? And just as a backstory, she attends a parochial school where her parents pay tuition for the education, including the college advice that she's supposed to get. What happened, I said, and she says, my guidance counselor deleted my common application. The common application, which she had been working on with me for like 3 weeks. What was even worse about that is that the guidance counselor had not told her that for 7 days. So it was actually 2 weeks ago.
So a real demonstration of character.
Well, I think she was just nervous. She's trying to make it better. By the way, I don't even know how you can delete the application. So somehow she figured out how to do it. It's a dark art. I don't know how she did it. But anyway, so that's unusual. But just getting back to this, you have to understand that there are a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of gray areas. You have to be very diligent and vigilant about everything you're doing, both in financial aid and the college applications. And I don't even know what she could have done to prevent that. She could have printed the whole thing out. I don't know. So I haven't actually talked to her since then. I've tried her a couple of times. I don't know if she's too distraught. So anyway, all right. So what are the questions?
Okay. Well, this sort of ties into.
And by the way, while you're looking,
yes,
I've just been trash talking with John McCabe because
cool.
I probably spent about an hour this morning trash talking 3 of my friends from high school because we have a reunion coming up. So now I'm just switching gears to McCabe.
Okay. Very nice. All right.
If we'd gone to high school, I probably would have picked on him.
I'm going to keep it relevant.
Okay.
Okay. The question is, on the Common App, do you need to say you are applying for financial aid? The concern is that some schools are not need blind.
Okay. Shall I? Okay.
Yes.
So here's the deal. If you want to be considered for need-based financial aid, then you should absolutely indicate on the common application for admission that you are requiring that. If that you're requesting it. If you don't indicate that, what could happen is the school will say, "Oh, you don't need our money." So that's part A. Part B is if you're not going to qualify for financial aid at all, meaning that maybe your income is too high or there's certain other things that disqualify you, it could be the list of schools you're applying to, then I would say do not check, and we've advised a handful of clients this year to do exactly that. Do not check the box that you want aid, indicate that you don't want aid, because many schools, I think it's most schools, will weight that as that factor in their decision making whether to admit you or not. So they'll look at your grades, your scores, your ethnicity, whether you're a legacy, your extracurriculars, your recommendations, and 20 odd factors, and whether you are applying for need-based financial aid. So I think a lot of parents and kids get very psyched out about this. They get very heady about it, and they're they're afraid to indicate that they want money because it's going to hurt their chances of getting in. And my answer to that is, yes, it might hurt a little bit. It probably doesn't hurt as much as you think in your mind. But if you're really superstitious and you want to go into this process, thinking, I have to go to this particular college, which is a whole other discussion, because I don't get that personally, and I don't think, speaking for Pearl, I don't think she gets that either. But if you're dying to get into a certain school, like Tufts, how we were talking about that before, which is a great school, but just because you go there doesn't mean, just because you go to Harvard doesn't mean you're going to get the job of your dreams. 6 months after graduation, 50% of Harvard grads are looking for jobs, and in over any rolling 20-year period, roughly 25% are still unemployed. So my point is that if you don't care about stuff like that, and you're dying to go to a certain school, and you're superstitious, and you want to give it your best and not leave anything on the table, meaning that you've worked your butt off on your grades, your SATs and ACTs, maybe taking them 5 times each, you spend all sorts of hours agonizing over your essay, then I would say, okay, if that's really you, then don't say that you want money, but be prepared to get either a reduced financial aid award or no financial aid award.
Right, and I want to make a comment about what you've just said as a matter of practice. I'm not swearing on anything, but I can tell you that as the person who submits all the financial aid awards, because this is some other comment that is relevant here, if you hear me out. These are separate processes. There is an admissions process and there's a financial aid process. They may even be in different buildings, on different streets, in the same campus, but it's not like the same person who is looking at your application for admissions is determining your financial aid. And they're not...
At many schools,
yes, but it's not...
It's different. Each school is different.
Yes. I mean, they are... With some of these bigger institutions, I will say, also, these processes are so separate sometimes that one hand really doesn't know what the other hand's doing. Again, so much so that eventually, we could submit a financial aid form and then the student eventually, doesn't send in an application or eventually does, but it all meets up eventually, and that is true. However, it's not like, obviously if someone has the Common App in front of them and that's part of your admissions and you're saying yes, it's not yes to the tune of, and that part of the analysis is done honestly by a separate department. But I just wanted to put that out in the matter of practice.
Yeah, in
it's
theory,
not as critical, it's not as big as I think people make it in their heads.
In theory and in practice, they're really two separate departments.
Yes.
But there's some schools, I think Boston College might be one of them that says we want to see all your tax returns up front.
Right.
So anyway, it does vary from school to school, but don't get too carried away with it. And if you need the money anyway, then don't shoot yourself in the foot. Apply for financial aid. If you are just joining us, this is our Friday FAQ, where you can FAQ us, and why the FAQ wouldn't they? Ask us your college frequently asked questions. Please post them in the comments, unless your name is John McCabe. I will be reviewing everyone else's comments. All right.
Okay.
That joke just keeps on giving. So anyway, hello to John. Who do you want to say hello to? Oh, Jason. Hi, hey, Jason. I haven't talked to you in a while. Hello, Larry, who's got a question.
Okay.
So please like, comment, and share. LCS, as we say in the biz. The other thing that we thought was kind of cool that happened at this boot camp that I mentioned before, which we're still recovering from, but we were basically in the office all day Saturday. Pearl didn't even go to the restroom, which may be too much information, but she was meeting with people back to back from like 10 o'clock till about 3 or so.
Like 5.
5, okay. All right, well, I left to go to our son's football game. Because I don't do the real work. But anyway, we were struck by the different types of families. It was really an interesting cross-section. We had one girl there who I'll be calling a little bit later for her accountability call, who had overcome an unbelievable set of really dire circumstances, very, very inspirational. And I was actually surprised, because you would talk to the mom about this. I was working with the kids in a group in a conference room. We had about 9 kids around a conference table, and she was, didn't strike. I'm usually pretty good at picking up on stuff like that. She did not strike me as having any issues whatsoever. That was really impressive. And later in her essay, she started talking about them. I was like, wow, this is what Pearl was talking about. We had some people who have very low income but a lot of money saved in the wrong places, who pretty much had a situation where when you looked at their numbers first, you said, okay, you're paying full price, but if you shelter this money, then you can go to school for half price, or it is
like
a dramatic
third. Yeah, it was so much
a
less.
third. Even okay, so
Third.
2/3 off, right?
Yeah.
Which is more than the
20%,
average
yeah.
discount, right?
Yeah.
A 67% discount instead of the average, which is 48%. So it was really interesting. It was really gratifying. It was fun. We had a girl who was a salutatorian in her class. We had someone who was just barely, getting through high school. And what makes me chuckle is the ratio of guys to girl, because I always feel like guys just don't, get it. We don't wake up as quickly as girls do.
Yeah.
And it was one guy and 8 girls, right?
Yeah.
We were twins. Yeah, it was very cool. So anyway, all right. So go ahead. Let's hit
Okay.
some of these questions here.
All right, so we got a question.
Is it from McCabe?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. An accountant
I'll take it.
says, we talked about this already. Oh, you brought this up already. $50,000 maximum.
Whose question? Who's that?
This was your question. Did
Oh.
you answer this?
No, but we got some questions in Facebook.
Oh,
So Larry, yeah. So you do the ones that we had pre-written. Larry asked a question: if you've indicated on the Common App that a future ACT is being taken, does a score report need to be sent even if not improved from prior? If so, or if improved, how is this supplemental information provided? So if you indicate you're taking it in the future and it turns out that score is lower or the same as one you've already provided, you can just blow it off. If they don't get it by a certain time, then they're not going to evaluate. They're just going to assume that it wasn't worth sending to them. But if not, then yeah, I would. If you do better, you would send it, and you can do it right from the ACT site itself. So it's pretty straightforward if you go on the ACT site. But I think what I would advise though is that if you have a kid who is trying to do this, I would reach out to the admissions office and say to them and ask them that question. I'm taking this later. How do I get the score to? Should I delay sending in my application? Those types of things. And most admissions officers will be very candid with you. So I was talking to a client of mine last weekend, Steve, whose son is applying to Harvard, and I won't give any details because it could give it away and make things uncomfortable. But if this kid doesn't get into Harvard, I don't know who does. That's just to sum it up. But they called up Harvard with a question that was similar to submitting later scores, and Harvard was sort of like, do whatever you want. So sometimes you get an offer, an answer like that from a school that thinks that their own what doesn't stink. But it's worth trying, because at the very least you'll demonstrate interest, which these schools track, which is very important. It helps you get in, but you'll get this information too, probably, unless it's Harvard.
By the way, different, but some people have asked, well, how do I make sure once you submit your financial aid forms, how do I know the school has it? What happens then? What if something went wrong? So we always recommend that you follow up on a submitted financial aid form about 3 to 5 days after you file. You can call up the financial aid office at a particular school and confirm that they've received it, and sometimes you might get an answer like, yes, we did, we received it, you'll be hearing from us, and you'll be hearing from us soon, you'll be hearing from us next March, or you might even hear, oh, we haven't downloaded anything from our server yet, and so I really can't tell you.
Okay, so that actually brings up another point, which is that this year the financial aid forms have gone in earlier. So every year up until now, Pearl has been filing the forms after January, but because that's January 1 is when the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, became available. This year it's October. And one of the main reasons that the Department of Education, Ted Mitchell,
Impressive.
not positive, but Secretary
Isn't that
Mitchell,
the undersecretary?
Undersecretary Mitchell in his memorandum.
Is there an oversecretary?
I think it's just a secretary. Yeah.
Isn't he an undersecretary?
Can you take the phone out from there? It's like
Weird?
distracting. Yeah, it's a little weird. They can't really see it because of the camera shot, but I can see it, and yeah, you don't want to know what we're talking about right now. Anyway, one of the main reasons behind having the FAFSA come out earlier was so that there'd be more certainty for families in terms of getting their financial aid awards earlier in the decision-making process. So I was talking to a guy today who was in the office, Mike, who I don't know if you got I emailed you probably didn't check it yet, but he had asked that question specifically to one of the schools that his son is looking at, who's a baseball guy, and this school said, well, if you get your your FAFSA into us, this in the next couple of days in October, we should be able to give you a financial aid award sometime in December, which is much quicker than it used to be. Most of the time in recent years, it was February at the earliest. March was typically when, sometimes in April. And the problem with that is that you have to make your housing deposit in May, and it's a very compressed time frame to go make final visits to schools, try to play the schools off against each other, and whatever. So hopefully most schools, I don't think it's going to be every school, but hopefully this year the schools will be giving their financial aid awards earlier, maybe as soon as December.
Right, and that was the policy behind the change in the FAFSA altogether, and thankfully the College Board followed suit and is also relying on the prior income year for.
Do they change what they were doing? Because
prior
means that if you have someone graduating in 2017. They're looking at 2015 income.
I'm going to explain right now how the CSS
Before you
profile
do that,
changed.
so we got 5 minutes left. If you have any questions, we may not be able to get to them now because I've got to go make some accountability calls. But please comment, share, unless your name is John McCabe, and we promise to get back to your questions either today or over the weekend. So let's wrap up with this change behind the CSS profile.
Okay, so
and give the global view. How many schools take the profile?
Of about 4,000 schools out there that require the FAFSA, there are about 270 schools that require the CSS profile.
College Scholarship Search profile.
Right. And
useless trivia.
The FAFSA, now, as we've explained, requires the prior income year. So we're now... These are 2017 high school seniors who are graduating. The financial aid year is based in the FAFSA on 2015 tax year. So too, the CSS profile tax year, the base year, is 2015 as well, in kind with the FAFSA. And they also ask a few line items about what you think your expected 2016 income will be, taxed and untaxed income, and your 2017 expected taxed and untaxed income in those years. In the past, it would ask for the year that is currently wrapping up, 2016 as the base year. I have
nice manicure.
Improving. 2016 as the base year. And it asks you also for the prior year information, 2015, only a few line items, not the entirety, and your projected expected 2017 income. But the base year was the year that you were still in. And that is why there was so much delay, because schools ultimately wanted the real deal, the real tax return that you filed, and that didn't happen a lot until April, May, and then they would initially give what's called a provisional award, and then once they got your tax information, they would finalize the award, and it just wasn't final.
Cluster, you know what?
It wasn't final until so close to the time that a student needed to make the decision, and it caused undue stress when really,
right. It was like a crescendo of stress.
The reality is, if they get you this year or they get you next year, when you're at that school, it'll catch up and calibrate, because if you did so great in 2016, well, guess what? Next year when you apply for financial aid, that great 2016 year is going to affect your award for that sophomore year. Okay? So I think
it's a little bit of a change. Before they emphasized the current year, now they're emphasizing the previous year, but they still want the current year.
They want it loosely. They want.
Don't you think
they're
going to ask for seniors this year? They're going to want 2016 tax returns.
I do think they will, but
can you find out, please?
I can, but the research I've done so far does not indicate that. So we'll have to see. I'm
on the case. The Sherlock Holmes of financial aid forms.
IDOC. I'm waiting to see.
Don't even mention IDOC. We don't have time for that. You and your acronyms. You and your damn acronyms.
Ultimately, after the financial aid forms are submitted, schools will require a hard copy of your tax return, and there are many different ways they can request it. The question will be whether that tax return will be the 2015 and 16 or just the 15 remains to be seen. We'll have to wait and see. It's a new year.
A lot of exciting developments coming down the pike. So I know this is boring stuff, but we're trying to make it interesting. It's important stuff. Larry, I appreciate your comment. Thank you, Lockwood's best in the biz. We think we're like top 5. No, I appreciate that. So we're going to wrap up now because I have to go harass some students, and you got to do another 200 forms or something.
Yep.
We will be back Tuesday. Every Tuesday we do College Talk Tuesday, which is 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Is it 12? Yeah, it is. And every Friday is FACUS Friday, the Friday FAQ, Friday Frequently Asked Questions, preferably about college stuff.
Can we wear costumes next Friday?
Pearl, I did not want you to mention that. You can wear costumes any day. Okay, on that note, are you through?
Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for sharing, commenting, and liking, and putting up with my comments. Bye-bye.